Hi everyone. In the given problem statement of text justification, we are going to given an array of words with an max width. Format the text in such a way that each line has exactly max width characters and is fully left and right justified. You should pick your word in a greedy approach. That is, pack as many words as you can in each line. Extra spaces when necessary so that each line has exactly max width characters. Now, here there are a few things to understand. Let us take the example. This is an. So first thing that you need to do, right, which is very important for us, is that in this bag of words or in this list, right, first thing let us understand that which three characters, let's say which characters, right? For example, take this one. The length of this is 4, this is 2, and this is 6. And example 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. 7. So if I add both of them, okay, and 6, the value is 12. Okay, but along with 12, we will have to give a space. So out of 3 characters, right, we will have to have at least 2 space. So the value is turning out to be 14. Now, if I add this one more character, the value is going to be 21. So this 3 is going to form one bag. Now example plus 2 plus 4, which is going to be 9, 13. Okay, 13 plus 2, because there are 3 characters, right? So if you have 3 characters, total number of characters minus 1, which is 13 plus 2, which is going to be 15. And the justification, so its value is going to be 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13. So the value is 13. So obviously after 13, this value, right, we can have n plus 1 dot is there, so it is going to be 14. So 14 and the max width, it's, let's say it's 16, right? So this character, right, so this is going to be another bag of word and this is going to be another bag of word. So the first thing that we need to do, right, we have to formulate, right, which sentence it is going to form. So this is going to be one sentence, this is going to be another sentence, and the justification is going to be another sentence. Now one thing to be understand in this given problem statement, it is said that the left means the last one, right, is always going to be left justified. So there in this case, right, there are 2 characters which are left justified. So we are going to merge both of them and we're going to have one space and remaining, right, the max width of 16. So all of them is going to have a space. So here, right, 5 plus 2, 7, plus we are going to have one space, so it is going to be 8. So once we merged it, right, it's going to have, let's say, shall be, right, and after shall be there are 8 white spaces, so that the total length of this entire sentence is 16. So the last characters, we are able to understand how we are going to justifying it. Now let us understand. For example, this is an example. Take us this. This is an. Okay. So as we know, right, so if I form all of this, so there are 2 blank spaces ideally, but we have to make it justified, right? So we have to make it means the total length should be 16. So how to do that? So here, right, we have to introduce. So currently it is 4, 2 and 2, 6. It's going to be 8, total 8 characters including 2 blank spaces. But let's say the blank spaces are not there, right, and we're just continuing the word. So the thing that we need to do, right, we need to have this, and there we will have to have 4 blank spaces, then is, and then there is going to be 4 blank spaces and then and. So this is how this entire sentence need to be written, so that it is forming the 16 characters of max width. Every word or every line should have 16 characters. We can add as many blank spaces as we want in order for us to make it happen. Now let us take the example of justification. So justification, right, So out of this total, right, it is 14 characters, and the last word of this sentence is always going to be left justified. So after that, we'll have to have the 4 additional white spaces out there. The last one is should always be justified. Now this would be the similar example of text. So 15, so we have 1 additional blank spaces. So initially there is going to be 2 white blank spaces, which is obvious. Now we have 1 more. The total length is currently 15. Now we have to add 1 more value. Which value to be filled? So we will fill the value which is on the first side. The reason being, here you're able to see that last line shall always be and the second line is left justified because it contains only 1 word. Here, right, if you look at the sentence example of text, so we have 1 character, so it is always going to be filled in a greedy approach. So the extra white space that is remaining, right, is always going to be added on this part. And now let us take the example, this character, right, acknowledged. Okay, so how many characters are there? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15. So the 1 white space is going to be coming on the left hand side. In case, let's say there was a smaller letter, right? Let's say X, Y, Z. So X, Y, Z could be added on the first, and all the other ones should be added later on the white spaces. So if you have 1 characters, right, in your string or in your sentence, right, so all the white spaces are going to be on the left hand side. It is always going to be left justified if you have just 1 characters. And the things to note is that if you have the last sentence, right, last sentence is always going to be left justified. And in case there is an understanding, right, so there are more wide number of white spaces that could be added, then it should always be filled in greedy approach. So there are these few things and conditions to remember for us before we start coding. So this problem is very simple to solve. Only thing is that there are so many conditions, right? We will have to take care of all of those conditions, and we have to write a lot of lines of code. That makes this problem a little bit complicated. Otherwise, it's a very straightforward, easy to understand solution. Now jumping up to the Python solution of the given problem. So here, let us give some variables. So the first variable that you're going to assign is that we want to convert this entire string into a list or a bag of words that is going to form a sentence. So for that, we are going to need an result array. Now the second thing that we require is that word length, which is going to be of 0 initially, and the temporary word or temporary sentence word that is going to be there. So the temporary sentence or the temporary array could be something like this. And as of now, let me assign it a value of an empty. So word is going to be empty. Now let me type in for I in range 0 to length of words. And this problem is going to be a little bit bigger because of simply reason being that it's a long code that's been written. So word length, so initial 0, but now once that is done, right, we have to add the length of that current word. So length of words of I, and now we are going to check whether the current word length plus the temporary value, right, so plus length of temporary words is less than equal to our max width or not. In case it's less than max width, then we are just going to add that word to our temporary word list. Sorry, I have a bit cough today. else rest of append our temporary word, and we are going to initialize temporary word to an initial list again, and temp word dot append to that value, and word length would be the length of word plus I. So once we have done that, right, if we return, or let's say let me print the value of result now. If I run it, it should print me these values. So even if you look into it, right, it's not properly done. But one thing that you're very clear, right? So this first three, right, the bag of words has been kind of completed. So this is so this first sentence, right, is going to be formed by this is then example of text, right? This is coming to the next list, and similarly it is going to be the another list. I have not added that word, but let's see if I word right res.append temp, so it is going to have all these values. So once we have all these values, right, available to us, now the thing that we need to do, which is going to be more trickier part of it, but at least we have reached to certain point. Now the trickier part is giving the spaces between the word. So in order for us to do that, so I do not require it right now, because unlike the first few sentences, right, the last is always going to be less justified. So whatever logic that we write, right, it's not going to be valid for the last one. So as of now, let me keep the last one in the temporary word for now. So let me do not add that to the result for the time being. Now let me write another loop. So for I in range 0 to length of result, and then length is going to be max width minus length of, we have to join, let's say this is that word, right? So you're joining this entire thing and taking out what is the entire length, right? So for example, if I join this entire statement, right, the length is going to be 8. So dot join result of the ith index. Once we have joined that, then length of word is going to be length res minus 1 plus 1. So basically this means, right, so there are let's say in this case, right, there are 3 characters, so number of spaces between the 3 characters is always going to be 2. So if there are 5 characters, right, length of spaces that is going to be required, right, between this is going to be 4. So it's going to follow that particular formula. Now we have done that. Let me add certain things, which is basically spaces. So the spaces required, right, between the characters is basically going to be the length which is available, double divided by, because we want an integer value, divide by length of word. The reason being, right, so here, right, our value is going to be 8. Okay, means if I subtract it, right, 16 minus 8 is going to be 8, double divided by the length of 2, which is going to be 4. So every spaces is going to means every between every word, right, there is going to be 4 spaces that needs to be added. So that is the reason for writing this formula. Now once we have done that, right, we have the spaces available to us. Now let me write a while loop. So while our length, right, so currently our length value is 4. Okay, So currently our length value is 8, and the spaces that we can add is basically 4 between all the characters. So if it's greater than 0, right, so you have to keep on doing it till the our length value becomes right, means whatever the extra spaces available should become 0. So for j in range, we are going to look through that entire words that are available. So the first characters we are going to ignore, right, because before this we do not want to add a space. We are going to take this character, these characters, and the whatever is present after it. So from 0 range of 1 to res of I, now we are going to add that value. So we are taking this index, for example, we are taking this index, right, is 0 and 1, right, because it's the first index within this nested list, and then within this entire list, right, it is the first character or the first word that is present. So res of I plus j equal to, we are going to give a space multiplied by how much spaces that we can give between these characters, right? It has been decided that we can give 4 spaces. So multiplied by spaces plus, so here, right, we before this is, right, I want to add 4 spaces. So I've added that 4 spaces, and then I need to add this is also, right, before we append it to our result. So that we are doing it. Once we have done that, we are just basically going to do minus our spaces. So this is the idea how this is going to work. And now if I print our result, how it is going to look. Let me try that. So here we're getting an error, right? Integer division or modulo by 0. Reason it is coming, take as example of, let's say, acknowledgement, right? So in that case of acknowledgement, it is going to be left justified, but we have not implemented it. So reason why it is happening, right? Because the length of word is 1, and once we subtract by 1, right, our formula is failing. So basically dividing the length by length of word, which is 0, and it's going to give us a 0 division error. So how to solve that? Let me add a try catch block, or we can add a condition. For me, I have added a try catch block, so feel free to explore whatever you like to do it. So I will do a try catch block in this case. So in case if it's giving an error, or just basically meaning, right, length of word is 0. So in that case, I have made a spelling mistake. So let me do an except, and it is going to be result of 0, and it is going to have 1 character. So always, right, we are going to take the first characters, which is going to be result of I of 0. And because it's left justified, right, so whatever the values that is going to be added, right, so we are going to add the spaces, right, after our word. So in this case, let me do it, spaces multiplied by length that is remaining. So let me do that. Once that is done, right, now if I run this code, okay, now once I run this code, our code looks pretty fine. We are handling most of the edge cases that are available. So now once we have done that, let me add one more condition. Okay, so the thing is that, let me, now we have the bag of words along with the spaces, right? Now let us try to merge that word. So let us form the resultant string. So resultant string, which is going to be for now an empty list, and then let me for each in resultant string dot append we're joining that value each. Okay, so once we have done that, right, it should form this value. Let me return it up, return result string. So here, right, we are able to see our work is mostly done. But what is remaining? The last character is remaining, and we have not taken care of that last characters or last value. So in order for us to do it, we have to go back to that temporary word that we have not stored into our resultant array or resultant list. So in order to do that, let me do res string dot append the last value that was remaining. So we are going to append it by joining it temp of word so we have joined that entire value, but if I look into it, it is not going to be left justified and nothing is done, right? So you have to add those extra spaces. So how to do that? It is very simple. So like we have done for these values, right, we have to do the same exact thing. So length equal to max width minus length of resultant string, the last value that is required, and then length or resultant string, right? So resultant string and when you're appending, right, so here the last characters, right, there should be one spaces, right, between every word, and all the other, right, it is going to be left justified. So here, right, resultant string dot append resultant string, the last character, which is going to be resultant string -1 plus the white spaces multiplied by the length that we have found out. So if we do that, it should work fine. So here, right, you are able to see our code is mostly done. So there are certain errors that are present out here. So we need to look and fix those. So for example, this test case got passed properly. This didn't, and the reason, right, here, right, it didn't pass because it is expecting 2 white spaces, but right, in our result, right, we are giving 2 white spaces, but in reality you just have a room for 1 white spaces. So what is the error that we are making? So if I go back to our code, and this is where I got stuck for a little bit. So if length is becoming less than equal to 0, once you're subtracting the value, right, so in that case what we need to do, res of I of j is going to be equal to res of I of j and absolute value of length, and we are going to break it up. So for example, here, let me run this code. So after looking into the error, right, we find out that we have made a very silly mistake. So here, right, the value or the if condition, right, I have made a mistake in the spelling. So let me correct it up and let me run the code. Once I run the code, it should run all the public test cases properly. Now let me submit the code. As you could see, it is beating 100% of the submission, and our code is very efficient because it is doing just one loop. Or if you can say it's big O of n time complexity at max. So our code is very efficient, but even though, right, this problem statement is not very difficult to solve, but there are so many conditions to be taken into consideration. That is basically increasing the length of our code. It's a 50 line of code that's been written, and there are so many conditions that you have to take care of. So understand those conditions that are expected from you, and I'm pretty sure by trial and error you are going to solve this code eventually. That's all for this video. See you in the next one.